I'm a modern automaker. Customers don't want manual transmissions. Customers don't want to think about transmissions at all. They just want to feel it rubber banding, briefly wonder why it's doing that, and then go back to being late to their firehouse wedding in Lower Camden. Customers want to sit high. They don't want a reasonable ride height, or else they wouldn't have plausible deniability when they run over pedestrians. Plural. Who gives a warm handshake about steering feel when you can drive a car as bereft of dimension as a Ken doll's pelvic girdle? Customers don't want buttons, they want screens, and they don't care if they work or not, because technology is an extension of form. Form is an extension of compliance. Compliance minimizes risk, and minimal risk means maximum returns. Who cares about feedback? Families don't need affordable, manual-equipped minivan-adjacent people movers like the Mazda 5, because imagination is deader than John Cena's wrestling career, and giving up is all the rage. I'm modern automakers. I don't pay you to tell me what customers want. I pay you to tell me how to gaslight them into wanting what I tell them. I don't believe in work-life balance. If you wanted to see your children age, you should have negotiated that in the interview.
This episode of Regular Car Reviews is sponsored by Lasfit. Lasfits are heavy-duty, perfect-fit 3D scanned mats that offer more coverage than OEM mats. They're easy to clean and made from premium TPE material. These oversized floor mats still fit perfectly into your footwells and also use your existing floor mat anchors. Today we're putting them in my friend Frey's Hyundai Santa Cruz. Frey is an EMT and often has to walk his boots through some nasty yards. These were the existing floor mats, and after we cleaned out the footwell, this is now his coverage. Sorry about all his gear in the back of this truck, car, ute. Utes confuse my people! We're probably going to review his car on RCR. We haven't done a Santa Cruz yet. But check out in the back how the back seats just have individual floor mats, and then we put the big one in, and now no matter who sits in the back of the Santa Cruz, no matter where they put their feet, they're not going to mess up the carpet. Click on the link in the description and use code AUG1 to save money on the Lasfit website. Once again, that's code Alpha Uniform Golf Delta 1 to save money on the Lasfit website. Thank you. And now, back to Nick and Race to the Bottom.
Mazda5 Sport. The official car of dads who curse in front of their kids, but take the time to explain why it was necessary. Before the days of parent influencers and their muted earth tones in their egg-smooth SUVs, with touchscreens bigger than a Bonnie Blue get-together, there was a simpler time. Remember when Mazda used to be weird and idiosyncratic, just making oddball stuff for niche buyers like a dad picking up fast food for a large family, but going to a different fast food restaurant than the one everybody else ordered from just to pick up food for the one picky eater in the group? Well, at the risk of coming down with a case of the Eustas, that used to be Mazda. They came together in their cul-de-sac of contrarian reasoning and said, hey, what if families liked cars too? Wouldn't that be wild? What if we, us, Mazda, and to a lesser extent Ford, but us, made a car for people whose identity wasn't entirely supplanted by parenthood? What if our customers had kids and then kept being individuals? Could you imagine? And so they put their heads together, and from that multi-purpose vehicle birth canal came the Mazda 5, a car I was fully expecting to loathe because I'm the Roman. This is Race to the Bottom, and I'm currently engaged in a never-ending search for the worst car in the world. And I can honestly say, it's not this. But can it break my top 5? Well, that's another story. Because what we have here is like an 80s minivan did the fusion dance with a 2000s crossover. This is a quirky little family hauler with a parking footprint so small the bowling alley doesn't even have shoes in its size. I don't know that you could find a minivan that you could parallel park this easily. And this isn't just a manual minivan. It's one of the last true manual family cars sold in the United States. And what's crazy to me is that this isn't even really riding on a traditional van chassis, but on a compact car chassis. This is just a taller Mazda 3. Maybe that's why it actually has a decent turning radius and why the handling isn't a mushy nightmare. It feels a lot tighter than it should considering its classification as a minivan. Of course, it's not exactly sports car tight, trim level designation notwithstanding. The engine here is the 2.5-liter MZR L5-VE inline 4, making approximately 157 horsepower and 163 pound-feet of torque, matched to a 6-speed manual transmission, and making factory fuel economy of around 21 city, 28 highway, and 24 combined. And here's the thing. While it can be a fast car at times, I wouldn't say it's a powerful one, nor particularly sporty either. But it has vitality. It doesn't take forever to jolt to life. It feels quick, even if it isn't consistently fast, you know what I mean? And I was impressed. From appearances, I was expecting this to move like too much couch being hauled away by too few people. And those were my best case expectations. Worst case, I was expecting a motorized futon running on Kodak batteries. But what I got was a pretty nimble car that thrives in an urban environment by virtue of being largely ignorable. This doesn't take up a lot of space or attention, it's just a practical car for practical movement. And even on the highway, it's not exactly awful. It can be a bit rough in the early going because yes, this is an aged platform, but once the motor is good and warmed up, it's actually kind of nice. This gearbox hates first and complains the entire time you're in it. It kind of sounds like a washing machine full of bees. I think I might have used that description before for something else, but it's really true here. And second is hardly any better, but things instantly improve once you're past those gears. Well, except for fifth. Fifth is functionally useless because it's not dramatic enough of a change from fourth that you wouldn't just go to sixth. There's virtually nothing happening at fifth gear. It's like fifth and sixth are right next to each other, and not even just, neighbors. It feels like they're occupying the bathroom at the same time, urinal next to urinal. This might as well be a 5-speed rather than 6. Now, this doesn't have great low-end torque, but it's adequate enough not to feel like you're dangerously underleveled. But by and large, I had a good time with this. It's got a lot of pep without feeling jittery beyond that initial shuddering at low RPMs. Once you're a bit higher in the rev range, this moves in a way that rewards momentum. Not that it even really gets that high, even if your foot is to the floor. You just coast merrily along like a high school senior at the end of May. But while I enjoyed the car, it's not like it doesn't have its problems, obviously. Besides the aforementioned useless fifth gear and weird things like a key that's so hostile to being put on a key ring that my outstanding volunteer Reyes had to zip tie the damn thing, the interior layout takes some getting used to. I wouldn't say it's cramped, but it does feel a little bit tighter inside than I would like it to be, but I mean, I used to drive a Mustang, but this isn't even anywhere close to being that level of cramped, But even for a smaller minivan, I think I was just expecting a little more room, although there does seem to be decent interior cargo space, particularly once you fold the seats down. But there are just a couple weird things, like the knobs on the center console are in weird spots. I mean, you would think that the center one would be for volume, but it's not, meaning that if someone who isn't used to this layout tries to adjust the volume, they're likely to just end up changing the station. Although, who just goes around and does that in somebody else's car without asking? Actually, I did give this lady a ride from a gas station once because she needed to go a few blocks down to get to her bus in time, and she wasn't going to make it if she had to walk. But we hit a traffic light, and it was there that she decided to turn on the radio and turn it up, which was really weird because I would later learn that she was this scammer who went to the same gas station every day to try and trick people into buying her cigarillos and chocolate milk. But anyway, weird Pennsylvania problems. Is that even like a legitimate combo that people put together? Like cigarillos and chocolate milk? Is that legit? Actually, I could kind of go for some chocolate milk right now, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, the size can also work against this car sometimes because it feels subject to some odd weight transfer dynamics where it gets a bit heavy on the turns. Now, from what I've read, these aren't really known for body roll, although obviously that doesn't mean it can't happen. But I feel like the shorter wheelbase has something to do with it because the suspension has less time to react. Road bumps hit you like a two-piece combo, no biscuit. But that uneven ride quality means the passenger sliding rear door can sometimes get unsettled from the rails, which is a problem because in Reyes's case, it doesn't latch properly anymore, so oftentimes the car will end up with a protrusion of sorts, the door's just sort of jutting out, even as it's technically closed. And considering the volume of problems Reyes had to solve just to drive this thing in the first place, the passenger door coming off the guide rail is like rubbing salt in an open wound. As Reyes was telling Brian during Brian's point of view drive of this car, which you can watch on Patreon right now, cheap plug, link in the description, the shift linkage failed, but parts weren't readily available and required a lot of effort to track down. So while he only paid $3,400 for this minivan, Reyes had to pay an additional $700 in parts and labor to get it roadworthy again. Although I still think he's ultimately coming out ahead in the end at that price point. Maybe not as far ahead as last month's Race to the Bottom, the $800 Silverado, which I didn't really like, but it was so cheap that I can't argue that last month's Volunteer isn't still winning at life. But another unfortunate trade-off here is that because this car, this engine, demands full synthetic oil, Reyes is having to put this in for $100 oil changes every time. And it's these little headaches that accumulate to make the experience of owning a Mazda 5 more obnoxious than I would ever get the chance to experience in just my 2 hours with it. And I can appreciate that, while simultaneously wishing there were more cars like this being made today. Because while it obviously has its flaws, this is a car that suggests that domesticity doesn't have to mark the death of adventure. And I know, it's not exactly an adventurous car, but what I mean to say is that you can have a family and still drive a car that feels like a driver's car, rather than a monument to suburban resignation. And I think this was manufactured to appeal to that more modest class of driver that is looking to still enjoy the act of driving while recognizing that, hey, I'm an adult now. I have adult responsibilities. I don't have the time or the money or the energy to put into driving a project car or spending all my time fretting about some fancy car that I'm never going to get to drive in the way that it probably deserves to be driven. Those people still deserve to have quality, fun cars too. And that's more or less what the Mazda 5 is. It's just this fun little car that still has tremendous family utility, or just adult utility, you know? This was born in Japan as the Mazda Premacy in 1999 and was sold with both Mazda and Ford badges. And at the time of its introduction, it was among the cheapest 7-seat vehicles on the market. And this carried over into its second generation in 2005, when it made its way to the United States as the Mazda 5, running on the same Ford Global C1 platform that underpinned the first-gen Mazda 3 and the Volvo V50. Obnoxiously, North America got screwed over on passenger seating because of course we did. You see, in other international markets, this is a 7-seater. But here, it's only 6 because safety regulations prevented the inclusion of the center jump seat that was used overseas. So while we still got a third row, North America got a 2-2-2 configuration instead of the global 2-3-2 configuration. And I guess the consolation is that you get captain's chairs in the second row instead of a bench, which I kind of like. But this all goes back to a thing that I was talking about in the most recent episode of Fuel for Thought, link in the description, where regulations are perhaps the biggest culprit for the trends in modern car design, because automakers are constantly trying to find ways to manufacture toward regulations without hemorrhaging money in the process. And that can be a very, very challenging game to play. I mean, I'd love to have pop-up headlights back, but again, it's like regulations are saying, hey, it's a pedestrian danger, so... I mean, I get it, but I don't know, just don't get me started. You'd think this would have been a reasonable success in an era of crossover SUVs and more compact options, because it's a versatile, nimble little car and a whole hell of a lot more enjoyable to drive than a Prius or a Dodge Journey. But if I had to hazard a guess as to why this didn't really last in America past 2015, even as it lasted until 2018 in other markets, I would suggest that it's because of market confusion. For one, the lack of that 7th seat meant that it was probably too small for some families, yet too much like an SUV for people in the market for something smaller. And there's also that issue that Mazda sort of undercut themselves with the CX-5, which did everything this could do, but with more ground clearance and all-wheel drive instead of the front-wheel configuration you get here. And in researching this car, one of the common through lines that I saw was people complaining about how underpowered it is. And fair, but also I don't feel like it's more underpowered than any other minivan, right? In a way, it actually modernizes the minivan by making it more maneuverable and incorporating a style that comes across as more sort of Euro-inspired. Yeah, it's still curvy, but it's not really a blob either. Its design complements its function, as the aerodynamic shape helps this feel a bit faster and zippier than it might otherwise have felt. It's concentrated momentum, and one of the most fun minivans I've ever gotten to drive. Yet being the most fun minivan is sort of like being the best salad at Texas Roadhouse. Good for you, but nobody's here for leafy greens. And yet... because there is always an and yet, there is an intrinsic value to a car like this. I feel like an old man every time I say that I don't need my car to be smart, but I really don't need my car to be smart. Low tech, a steady gearbox, good tires, and good road, and sometimes not even that, and I'm happy. I don't think being an adult with adult responsibilities means we have to settle for lifeless crossovers or over-engineered EVs. Compromise exists, even if the options are thinning out like a middle-aged hairline. Trust me, I know. The Mazda 5 suggests that growing up and settling down aren't the same thing as giving up. Is this a sporty car that lets you rip through town in the summers and stunt on all of your neighbors? No. But it really is a blast. I had a great time with this gearbox, even with the absentee 5th gear that went out for milk and never came back. I like the awkward, jagged jelly bean styling in a way I typically don't in other vehicles of this period. It's peppy and alive with anxious energy, even if it's not a lightning bolt on 4 wheels. And that may sound like I'm damning this with faint praise, but the most glowing thing I can say about the Mazda 5 is that it shows up. It brings fun, bachelor car energy to domestic life, and makes the case for a return to a simpler style of car. The kind that isn't trying to be smarter than you, that isn't trying to keep tabs on you, that isn't trying to do everything for you because it doesn't think you can do any of it yourself. I'm an adult. Oh, God. If I'm going to make a dog's dinner out of this, let me do it on my own terms. And maybe that's an irresponsible mindset. Maybe I should be welcoming all the technological help that I can get. But ultimately, I appreciate the Mazda 5 for being so achingly simplistic. It almost feels like something entirely new. Alright, real quick, before I get to the ranking, the annual RCR Christmas Song featuring my nephews and nieces is now available wherever you stream music. It might just be my favorite thing that I've ever done in anything, because I got to do it with some of the people that I love most in the entire world. The link is in the description, and I would love to surprise them by having it chart somewhere, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Whatever the song makes, it's all going to go to them. The link is in the description, and I'll be playing it for the outro to this video. And please be sure to like, comment, share the video, subscribe, tap the bell icon, or even support us on Patreon, where you can get early, ad-free videos and exclusive content for just $1. Okay, on with the rankings, and honestly, I think I'm at the point where I really need to stop doing manuals for Race to the Bottom. Because outside of the Chevy Cruze hatchback from hell, I've enjoyed every single one, even if they didn't ultimately end up in my top 5. However, this one is slotting into my top 5 at number 3. And from a certain standpoint, the Mazda5 Sport combi was better, more mechanically sound, and even more useful, considering the space that a wagon can get you. But I had more fun with this. I genuinely did, and I almost can't believe that I'm saying that, because I really did enjoy the Sport combi a lot. And my lists are kind of ridiculous, I know. But the whole point here is that it's my own subjective opinion based on that particular example provided to me by the volunteer. So something I hated, you might love, and vice versa. It's all in good fun here, and I have no idea why I felt the need to add that disclaimer for this. I feel like y'all have been watching me long enough. I've been fortunate enough to have enough viewers who've been watching me long enough to just know that not to take this too seriously. It's ridiculous, even though it's my job, so I can't help but take it at least a little bit seriously. But there you have it. That's my top 5, my new top 5. That means we have to say goodbye to the Saab 97X. It was really great having you on the list. It truly was. Now, if you have a car that you think can win the Race to the Bottom, or a car that you think Brian might want to review, reach out to me at regularcarstheroman@gmail.com and specify whether the car is being offered for Race to the Bottom, regular car reviews, or either. And let's see what we can make happen in 2026. Thank you so much to Reyes for his help and for his friendship. Truly, you are a man for all seasons. The 2025 Automotive In Memoriam is now live, and Brian has a new review planned for Christmas Day. A wild new review. So definitely be on the lookout. We're closing out 2025 strong. Now excuse me while I get to work on the final Roman report of 2025, and have an amazing rest of your week. Don't pretend you're over it, or like that Santa hat don't fit, or the Christmas carols sound like radio edit. You're way too young to say to me, as cold as Santa's sleigh to me. I'm too